Hello and welcome to the second episode of the 2019-2020 MBC Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Selover, joined again by Connell Scruggs and JP Eisenhauer. Today on the lineup, we will be talking about GHSA football, moving on to college football, and then finishing off with the MLB Playoffs. Guys, what are you looking forward to in this week's matchup for Marist against Chestatee for homecoming?
I'm really looking forward to seeing this Marist offense improve a lot from last week. I think this Chestatee defense might be the worst Marist will play this year. Their defense gives up more big plays in the film I've seen than any other. When you're just watching their highlights, they're busting coverage all across the board, all corners. Their linebackers and safeties are coming down to play the run and are not covering over the top, and they're just getting torched on defense. 58-0 Denmark win last week.
Yeah, and I think some things we can't have this week. We had 4 turnovers last week against a team like White County. That can't happen. Their defense was average at best. And Connor Sigelski, he was missing some easy throws. We haven't seen him miss in the past, but I think that'll improve this week. And one thing I have to say, the defense was getting picked apart in the second half on passes short of the stick. So short 5 to 7 yard passes, they were getting picked apart in the zones. But it could be due to that they were running a little more vanilla coverage, getting some backups in. But as JP said, Chestatee does have a really bad defense, and they run a spread offense like White County, so we should be really prepared for that, but their offense is not talented at all. They like to use their running back a little bit more than their quarterback, the quarterback for White County does.
Yeah, I think another thing last week was, I wasn't at the game, but the defense, based on some stats I looked at, poor fourth down defense. Yeah. White County went for it a lot on fourth down due to some offensive struggles, but every time I think they went 6 for 7 on fourth down conversions, so that's just not acceptable from the defensive standpoint. Coming into the game last week, the defense had looked really good all year. Last week showing a few signs of weakness, but hopefully they can get back on track again this week against Chestatee. They're definitely one of the 2 worst opponents in our region.
I think White County was very underrated coming into this matchup, though. A lot of us thought it was going to be like last year, and I feel like they did a lot better, and they've been playing a lot better all season than they have last year. I think they kind of deserve the respect now after putting up a good fight against Marist.
Yeah, and NBC will be covering this game on the NFHS network. The game's actually going to start at 7:30, but make sure to tune in at 7:10 for the NBC pregame show, where we will discuss keys to the game and other analysis. And after that, Phil Etheridge and Jerry Novak will be yet again on the call for the game.
That's right. And another thing I would look forward to this week is definitely seeing the offense get back on track, and hopefully we can stay healthy this week. Last week, a bunch of injuries. Tyler Hare with a head injury. I believe he's going to be back for this week. Mitch Owen in a boot this week following last week's injury. And one other injury, right, Connell?
We have actually a couple other injuries. Charlie Fleming went out for a couple of plays.
Yeah, he'll be fine for this week.
Yeah, he'll be good. I think the only one I'm a little concerned about is Mitch Owens, especially because he's really an integral part of this team.
Yep.
And I feel like if they lose him, it might be a little bit different. He's like the Swiss Army knife on this offense.
And we're going to move into some 4A rankings, 4A Region 7 standings, actually. Coming into this week, almost every team in our region, 4A Region 7, has played one game. Denmark, Marist, Blessed Trinity all going 1-0 in the first week. White County, West Hall, Chestatee all losing. Flowery Branch played Gainesville out of region last week, yet to play a region opponent. Marist and Denmark both undefeated on the season at 4-0 and 5-0, respectively. Blessed Trinity 4-1 with the 1 loss to Woodward. White County 3-2. As I mentioned last week, probably the best chance out of West Hall, Chestatee, White County. White County definitely has the best chance to make the playoffs if they can upset one of the top 4 teams. Flowery Branch playing White County this week. That's a big game. If White County can get a win against Flowery Branch, they might be able to make the playoffs as the 4 seed out of Region 7.
Yeah, that'll shake some things up as Flowery Branch is 3-0 and White County is 3-2. That would certainly help them in the region standings. But I think Flowery Branch is going to take this one. Very talented team. Even continuing from last year, showed they were good. They beat Gainesville last week, and I think they're going to continue it this week.
Yeah, I think Flowery Branch has a great rushing attack. I feel like their rushing attack against this White County defense is just going to be too much, and they're coming off a great win against Gainesville. I think Flowery Branch wins this one.
I agree with you there, JP. I'm also going to pick Flowery Branch to win this one. Obviously, a good win over Gainesville last week, a talented team in Georgia, so they're coming in on a high, looking to get their region play started with a win over White County. That's probably the biggest game for them in the coming weeks is against White County because they need to win that one to pretty much lock up a playoff spot. And then down the stretch when the top 4 teams all start facing off against each other starting next week with BT against Denmark, it's going to be exciting to see who can take the top spot and then moving on down in the region. As we move on to some 4A rankings here, we'll take you through the 4A top 10. Starting at number 1, Cartersville, undefeated 5-0. Second is Sandy Creek 4-0. Woodward 4-0. Marist 5-0. So the top 4 teams in 4A are all undefeated. At number 5 spot is Blessed Trinity 4-1. Troup County 4-1 at number 6. Flowery Branch 3-0 at number 7. Denmark 4-0. Cairo 4-1. And North Oconee 6-0. A bunch of undefeated teams still yet to lose in 4A in the top 10. It will be exciting to see as region play is getting going. A bunch of those teams are in the same region as each other. It'll be exciting to see some undefeated teams face off in the coming weeks.
And I think a team that is continuing to be underrated is Denmark in this.
Denmark
4A.
needs to be in the top 5.
Yes, they're an extremely good team. They lead 4A, the entire classification in points per game at 45 points per game. And we mentioned this in the last podcast, but they have a lot more experience this year. They did not have a senior class at all last year. So the guys got to develop a little bit more, put some more weight on, get more physical. So now they're a very talented team this year and should not be overlooked.
Yes, led by junior quarterback Aaron McLaughlin, senior wide receiver Xavion Capers, both committed to Auburn. The one thing I will say, it's understandable for these rankings to be missing out on Denmark a little bit due to their lack of strength of schedule to start the year. They're outscoring opponents by their average margin is about 40 because they're not playing. They're yet to play anybody good, so it's understandable. But as they start playing region games, if they can knock off Blessed Trinity, I think you'll see them jump up into the top 5.
And I think they probably have a great chance to knock off Blessed Trinity. Denmark's offense is a force to be reckoned with.
That'll be an exciting game next week. As we move into our Georgia games of the week in high school, starting off Troup County at Sandy Creek. Troup County is 4-1. Sandy Creek undefeated at 4-0. Last year, Troup County won 35-21. Both of these teams in the top 10 of 4A, both in the Region 5, along with Cartersville. That's a stacked region, along with Region 7. That'll be an exciting game to get things going in Region 5, see who can take the top spot for the moment.
Yeah, I got Troup County in this one. Their offense is extremely potent. They're averaging 45 points per game. They got a dual-threat QB, Kobe Hudson, who's committed to Auburn. So their offense is deadly, and I think it's going to be a little too much for Sandy Creek, although I think it will be a close game.
Yeah, and going back to Kobe Hudson, he's probably the best dual-threat quarterback we've seen in 4A, although I am going to take Sandy Creek in this one undefeated. I think they're going to remain undefeated for one reason. Last week, Troup County lost to Cowway 56-45. That's just not good enough to give up 56 points in a high school game. Defense hasn't been good enough. I think Sandy Creek will put up a bunch of points and outscore them. Sandy Creek's defense has also started the year well. Sandy Creek is averaging 5 points per game on defense and 42 on offense. Also, their quarterback, Matt Williams, with 75% passing and 981 yards and 12 TDs to start the year. I think Sandy Creek will put up some big numbers and win this one, although it will be close.
Well, Celo, I think you're going to have to be alone on this one because I'm taking Troup County. Troup County's receivers have been doing really well this season, and their D-line has been getting a lot of penetration. And you mentioned the Troup County quarterback. I watched a play where he's running around in the pocket for 11 seconds, side to side, heaves one downfield, and gets a 30 or 40-yard catch out of that. I think he is one of the best dual threats quarterbacks that in Georgia, and I think he has a big day, and Troup County wins this game.
I think it'll be close. I think it will definitely be high scoring.
Yeah.
I think
It's going to be fun to watch.
I think the Sandy Creek defense will do just enough. As we move on to Westland versus Eagles Landing, both teams 4-1. Both teams have lost to Holy Innocents. Eagles Landing last year won 63-0. I think it will be a lot closer this year.
Wow.
Westland has improved a lot. Although Eagles Landing lost to Holy Innocents 42-41 in overtime, whereas Westland lost 31-0. I'm going to take Eagles Landing, although it will be a lot closer than last year.
I'm going to take Eagles Landing too. You saw in the scrimmage versus Marist, their quarterback and running back are extremely athletic. Some of the most athletic players we've seen that Marist has played. Extremely shifty running back especially. And Eagles Landing has just been dominant over the past 4 years under their coach. So I think they're going to continue to show their dominance.
Having watched Eagles Landing play in person, you really get a respect for how good that team is. And I do not think that Wesleyan can beat this team. I think that Eagles Landing wins this game, and I'd say it's a good margin of victory.
Next game on the list is Warner Robins, Houston County. Both teams 4-1. Last year, Warner Robins won 49-21. Although these teams are county rivals, Houston County, of course, home of Jake Fromm, quarterback for Georgia. Houston County currently has quarterback Jalen Addy, 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns to start the year, along with wide receiver Marcel Jones, who's committed to Memphis. Last year, he set the state single-season record for receiving yards in 1 year. He's already up to 400 yards this year. I think Houston County will win this rivalry game.
I'm actually going to take Warner Robins in this one. I think this is going to be the best game out of these four. Both teams 4-1, as we said, and they're equally talented. Both teams have a quarterback over 1,000 yards passing, and you mentioned Warner Robins QB Jalen Addy. He's playing extremely well as Marcel Jones. And you said he set the record for single-season receiving yards. I mean, it's going to be too much for Houston County, I think. Although it will be the closest game. I'm calling that it will be the closest game out of the four.
Yeah, Andrew, you're going to be alone again on this one. I got Warner Robins. The Warner Robins defense, when I was watching them, they looked really, really good, especially their secondary. And their offense has a lot of complexity to it, a lot of motions. It's really a complex team, and I think that this team is too good to lose.
Wow, I'm not making friends this week on the picks, apparently.
Nope.
Marietta in our final game, Marietta 3-1, taking on Edgewater out of Florida, 6-0 to start the year. Both teams in the top 50 ranked in the nation. Marietta, I'm going to take Marietta in this one. Bunch of top prospects on their team, and they're going to have the home field advantage. I think that will play crucial, and Marietta will win in another close game.
That I can't agree on, Andrew. I got Marietta winning this one. Marietta always, for the past 2 seasons, they've played incredibly good talent. Last year, they went 1-1 against similarly ranked out-of-state teams, so they consistently play good teams. And as you mentioned, Marietta does have more prospects, 8 3-stars for Marietta to 3 3-stars for Edgewater. It's a battle of neighboring states and really competitive states, actually, in football if you consider the larger state as a whole. But I still think Marietta is going to take this one.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Marietta. Coming into this season, 9 seniors were ranked among the top 100 prospects in Georgia. 9. One of them, tight end Eric Gilbert. Last year, he had 88 catches for 1,210 yards and 14 touchdowns.
Dang, man, tight end.
A high school tight end. Getting those kind of numbers, that's incredible. I think this team's too talented. I got Marietta.
And we're going to move on to college football now.
Yeah.
But before we talk college football, let's remind you of the standings and our picks for the podcast. Connell is leading 9-1 last week in the picks, only dropping the USC upset pick. JP 8-2 with 8 points, and myself, I had 7-3 weeks, 7 points. All the games we're picking are worth 1 point, although our upset picks are worth 3 points if we happen to get them. All of us missed upset picks, although I will say I was the closest.
You were the closest. Mine was not a good one.
Closest on the upset pick.
Indiana almost pulled the upset over Michigan State.
And we're all within 1 point, first to second, second to third. It's still
it's a close matchup after 1 week. We'll see how the standings look after 2.
So let's take a look back. Last week, college football. Virginia at Notre Dame. Outstanding environment up at Notre Dame as I got to watch that one in person. Some great things I saw for Notre Dame. Their defense really shined. I mean, the offense has been struggling. They're still continuing to struggle. I said it last week. Notre Dame offense is not elite. I stick with that. The defense is elite, though, led by 2 interceptions by Alohi Gilman and Marisol Kyle Hamilton.
Woo!
And then along with Tua Tagovailoa's cousin, Tagovailoa Amosa on the defensive line. The defensive line in that game just took over in the second half. 2 blindside hits on Josh Perkins, both causing fumbles. One returned to the 5-yard line, one returned to the end zone. The defense outscored Virginia's offense in the second half after Virginia led at halftime. I think Notre Dame's defense will carry them the rest of the season, and the offense really needs to get better if they want a chance to be an elite team.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The key takeaway from this game is the Notre Dame defense continues to prove they're legit. 8 sacks. Defensive end Julian Okwara had 3 sacks and 2 forced fumbles, one of which led to a TD. I'd say he's a player of the game. And as you mentioned, Kyle Hamilton with an extremely athletic pick, man. He read that ball perfectly and dove right over the middle to make it. And I like the celebration, too, at the end. And through 5 games, Notre Dame has 11 forced turnovers. So they continue to take the ball away from offenses and create opportunities for their offense.
Not only that, but I found out this was Notre Dame's 900th win in program history, just the 7th team to do that, and their defense played incredible, especially that defensive line. You talked about it. They got a touchdown on defense. I'm going to try this name. Adekunbo Odungehi.
Hey, that's
I
good.
don't know if that's right, but I'm sorry if it's wrong, but he played really good. After Okwara got the strip sack, it landed right into his arms. Same with Tagovailoa Amosa after Okwara stripped it. And Kyle Hamilton, maybe not 5 pick sixes, but I'll take an interception.
Yep.
As we move on to Ohio State, Nebraska, home of College game day last weekend, an utter disappointment for Nebraska. JP, you said you liked Nebraska.
I'm gonna clarify this now. I no longer like Nebraska. Coming into the season,
How can you after that performance?
I thought Nebraska's defense was going to be good coming into the season. Second-year quarterback Martinez, I was expecting a lot from Nebraska. They're horrible. Yeah. They are horrible.
I think one thing is everybody's talking about how bad Nebraska played. I think we should more put the focus on how good Ohio State is this year. Led by Justin Fields, quarterback transfer from Georgia. That offense is maybe the top offense in the nation right now.
I'm going to go ahead and say they are the top offense in the nation. This is their 4th consecutive 500-yard game. 4th consecutive 500. Justin Fields is playing out of his mind. 16 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. In this game, they scored on their first 8 drives and led 38-0 at halftime. I mean, how do you come back from that? You can't win a game if you're Nebraska.
Those are Big 12 offense stats.
That's Big 12 offense stats in the Big 10. And Ohio State has outscored their opponents 173-22 in the first half. When you're getting up like that in the first half, it's hard for teams to come back mentally.
I never thought I'd hear a Bama man say Ohio State's offense is better than Bama.
Man.
I like Tagovailoa. I like Alabama's offense a little bit better, but I do really like Ohio State's offense, maybe second or third. But Dobbins went off.
Dobbins
he is doing extremely well. Justin Fields is showing why Georgia wanted to keep him even with Fromm. And this offense is incredible. And this defense is doing really good as well. And I think this team's definitely going to be making a lot of noise in the playoff picture.
Yeah, and the next game we were watching last week was an interesting one. As UNC, coming off a loss to App State
I got a lot to say about
before,
this.
Came in and almost beat Clemson at UNC. I think what Dabo Swinney said after the game was interesting, saying how you expect us to win by big in every game. That's not how college football works. I thought that was an interesting approach to it. I would have thought he would just be mad about how his team performed and go get after him in the locker room. I think this will put a scare in Clemson, and I think they'll come back, start playing a lot better, we'll see them look like the Clemson we saw last year a little bit.
It also put a little scare in the AP poll because Clemson moved down a rank. They're number 2 now. Bama moved up to number 1 in the rankings, and a very interesting loss there. It's been a weird season for North Carolina. going 2-0 to start the season, beating Miami, and then they lost to Wake Forest and App State, and then making a game of this game, only losing by 1 to Clemson on a 2-point conversion. It was an interesting call. I liked that they went. I liked that they went for 2. I didn't like the play call. I didn't like the triple option with the speed that Clemson's got on the edge. I didn't like the play call, but definitely
I
going
agree
for
with
2.
the call to go for 2, though.
Yes.
Yeah, when you're playing the number 1 team in the nation, you go for 2, you go
Yep.
for the win. Clemson, the reason that their coach isn't going to call them out, the issue isn't the team, it's Trevor. If you look at Trevor Lawrence's numbers, obviously he's a good quarterback.
Mhm.
He is the reason that they're winning a lot of games, but the reason they're not winning them as good, he's had 5 interceptions this year. ETN is the one really bringing a lot of stability, and don't get me wrong, Trevor Lawrence is a great quarterback. He will be an incredible NFL quarterback, and I think he is easily still one of the best college football quarterbacks, but there is a big drop-off from last year, and I think that's with teams getting a lot of tape on him, knowing what to do now.
Yeah, the thing for Clemson is they had a little trouble getting going in the first half. Travis Etienne fumbled in the first half. He only has 2 fumbles this year, and they trailed 14-7 at half, and it felt like they had to fight back pretty much the whole game to UNC, which is it's odd to say that UNC had the hand over Clemson for most of the game, but they did.
Yeah, the UNC rebuild is going extremely well. They are really moving towards the future. The running game is really doing great, and they have a lot of good quarterback play, and their defense is really improving, and you saw that in that Clemson game. I feel like this team, they're not going to make a lot of noise this year. They may make a couple upsets, but next year they might be a team to watch out for.
I agree with that, and we'll move on to Texas Tech, Oklahoma. I don't know what to say about Oklahoma. They just look good.
Oh man, and I think
Jalen Hurts, he looks
10
times better than I think we really ever saw him at Alabama, throwing the ball especially.
Yep. It's crazy how he's developed as a passer this year. I mean, I'm an Alabama fan, so I watched him go 26-2 in his first 2 seasons as a starter, and when the year he won the SEC Offensive Player of the Year, he wasn't really a passer. He was a majority runner. He was a guy that looked at his first read and then kind of got
He'd roll out.
Yeah, he would roll out and kind of throw the ball into the third row if his first option wasn't there. But now it's totally different. This last game he went 17 for 24, 415 yards, 3 touchdowns. It's great to see Jalen performing like this, which is why I say after Alabama, Oklahoma is my second favorite team because I want Jalen to do well this year.
That's the second quarterback this year to take a big leap in the passing game.
Mhm.
Ellinger also made a big leap. I want to talk about the receivers and I never thought I'd say that. I want to talk about Oklahoma's defense. But I'm going to start with the receivers. They had 3 5-star receivers, including the unanimous top receiver in the nation, Jaden Hazelwood. And along with CeeDee Lamb as the veteran presence, their receiving core is incredible. Hurts can just throw it up and they're going to catch it. And Oklahoma's defense, they're not playing like they did last year. Last year, they were horrible. If they were even a little bit better, they had a better chance against Alabama with that offense. They got a new defensive coordinator from Ohio State, and they're now 5th ranked on 3rd down with a .231 conversion percentage for opposing teams, and their defense is light years ahead of what it was last year, and this is another program who got their 900th win, 6th to do that.
One thing I want to mention really quick, I think after this start to the season, and it hurts me to say this, but Jalen Hurts, I think, should be the leading Heisman contender over Tua Tagovailoa.
Oh, that was a bad pun.
Over Tua.
That was a
I
bad
didn't even mean
pun.
that, but I think, Jalen Hurts should be the leading Heisman contender over Tua Tagovailoa, and he's got the story to go with it.
I think also you should be looking at Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin, and definitely Fields at Ohio State. Also, all of those guys are up there as we are going to move into some picks for the week, I think. Number 25, Michigan State, is traveling to Ohio State, correct?
Yes.
To face the number 4 ranked Buckeyes. Michigan State 1 loss on the year. Ohio State undefeated, and Ohio State is favored by 25 points in this one. Connell, I picked Michigan State to lose to Indiana last week.
Yeah.
Almost got that one wrong. I don't think there's any way they beat that high-flying offense up there in Ohio State.
Yeah, I got Ohio State by a big margin too. We mentioned their potency on offense. They just dominate teams, and their defense too deserves a mention. For the last 3 games, they've given up less than 300 total yards of offense, which is great. They got a defensive end, Chase Young. He's an extreme threat on the edge. He gets a lot of pressure on quarterbacks. And this team just continues to get better as weeks pass.
Yeah, Justin Fields had an incredible game last week. 212 yards, 3 touchdowns. He went 15 for 21. But I think the major player in this game is going to be J.K. Dobbins. Last week, he had 24 rushes for 177 yards. He averaged 7.4 yards per rush. You don't even have to tell me the second team, Ohio State. Whoever it is, it's Ohio State.
Let's take a look at number 11, Texas, playing West Virginia this week. Both teams 3-1. Texas Longhorns favored by about 10.5. I think Sam Ehlinger will get it done this week again. Strong runner, strong thrower. I think West Virginia is a good team. I think they have a chance to do well in the Big 12 again this year, even after losing their top quarterback, Will Grier, last year. I think Texas will win this one, though. I think it'll be pretty close.
I got Texas in this one, too. Sam Ehlinger just continues to develop as a passer, and he's the biggest impact player on this Texas team. He has over 1,200 passing yards and ranks 5th in QBR in the FBS. Sam Ehlinger ranks 5th in QBR in the FBS. He's a 15-1 touchdown to interception ratio. He's just doing great. I think Texas takes this one in a big margin.
Yeah, this 6'3", 230-pound junior throwing for 1,237 yards. As you said, 15-1 touchdown interception ratio, 87.4 QB rating. He's playing out of his mind this year. And West Virginia, they lost to Mizzou. Not only that, they got destroyed by Mizzou. So if you guys are going to tell me Mizzou's bad, this isn't going to be a close game.
JP, I thought you said Mizzou was going to beat
Mizzou
Alabama.
is good. Mizzou can beat Alabama. I would 100% believe that. If they meet in the SEC championship, I will pick Mizzou on this podcast.
No.
JP, they're not meeting in the SEC championship.
Once they beat Florida and Georgia, I think so.
I will not support this.
Okay. As we move on to Iowa and Michigan, number 14 ranked Hawkeyes, undefeated on the season, 4-0, taking on the 19th ranked Wolverines. Even though Michigan is ranked number 19, as opposed to 14 for Iowa, they are favored by 3.5 in this game. I think the loss a couple weeks ago for Michigan to Wisconsin, not just losing the way they lost,
Yep.
I think that might put a fire under Harbaugh, and I think he knows that he's kind of fighting for his job at this point. And I think he'll get into his kids this week. I think the Michigan Wolverines will look like a different team this weekend and will win over Iowa.
I'm going to have to disagree with you there, Andrew. I got Iowa taking this one. Believe it or not, in the Harbaugh era, Iowa has a winning record versus Michigan. The last time these two teams played was 2016. Iowa won 14-13 on a buzzer beater field goal. And Harbaugh has continued to struggle against ranked teams throughout his entire career. He's 1-9 against top 10 teams. And Michigan is pretty lucky that this Iowa team is ranked 11th, because if they were top 10, I would have resoundingly taken Iowa. And the Michigan offense is struggling through this one. But I will say this. It's going to be tough for Iowa because they're playing in the Big House, which is the biggest college football stadium in total. It supports over 108,000 fans. I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah, it'll be a crazy environment up there again.
Quoting Andrew Selover, Week 1 podcast, on behalf of me and Connell, you're wrong. Iowa averages 33.5 points per game while only giving up 8.5. They average 962 yards rushing while only giving up 362. They are playing out of their mind. And their quarterback, Nate Stanley, 155.47 passer rating. A perfect is 158.3. He is playing insane, almost having 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, and most importantly, 0 interceptions.
I see how it is, JP. Y'all have turned against me this week. As number 7 Auburn travels to Gainesville, number 7 Tigers are taking on the Florida Gators in a very highly anticipated matchup. I think Auburn's favored by about 2.5, and this is the home of College Game Day for the week. I'm going to take Auburn, though. I think Bo Nix really proved himself last week. Big win last week. What do y'all think?
I also have Auburn in this one. I did rag on Bo Nix last week, saying he hasn't proven himself yet. He played exceptionally well against Mississippi State. 16 for 21, 335 yards, and 2 touchdowns. which is a great performance. He continues to get better as the weeks go by, but I'm not ready to crown him yet. He is 26 in QBR. He's definitely been improving, but not where I want him to be right now.
You want to hear QBR? 99.5 passer rating last week.
That's
I
not
like
QBR.
that.
That's passer rating.
Sorry, QBR last week. I'm sorry. I meant QBR.
No,
99.5 QBR. It says right here.
He's not
Right here. Last week.
Oh, last week. Yes,
That's what I was saying. Sorry.
Sorry.
I said last week, so. But he had a 76.2% completion percentage, 980 yards on the season, 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I really like Bo Nix, and that defense is good. That secondary is taking the ball away with 3 interceptions, and last week, 4 sacks last week. This Auburn defensive line is the Clemson defensive line last year.
And like JP, I'm going to agree. This game is going to be a defensive battle. Both defenses rank in the top 5 in the SEC in points per game allowed, defensive efficiency, and rush yards allowed per game. And one thing Florida's going to need to do really well this week is their offensive line and their run blocking. The offensive line for Florida is kind of questionable, and it's going to need to play really well against this potent Auburn D line.
I think ultimately this game comes down to which Bo Nix you get. I think a couple weeks ago, Texas A&M, he barely passed for over 100 yards.
But they won.
Then last week, he puts up huge numbers. I think it really depends on which Bo Nix you get. If he comes out throwing well, I think Auburn's going to win this. But if they really struggle on offense, I think Florida might have a chance in this game. As we're going to take our upset picks for the week. This week, I'm going to take Texas Tech over number 21, Oklahoma State. 10-point favorites are the Cowboys, but I think Texas Tech, led by QB Alan Bowman, they have losses to both Arizona and Oklahoma on the season, both pretty understandable losses. I think Texas Tech will come in and play really well against the Cowboys, and I think they have a chance at winning.
JP, you're not going to like this, but I almost picked Troy to beat Missouri.
No way.
Because
happening.
Troy has played spoiler in the last couple of seasons. 2 seasons ago beating LSU, 1 season ago beating Nebraska. But I did not pick Troy. I instead have Virginia Tech over Miami. Miami's a 10-point favorite in this one, and they've struggled all year. I think Virginia Tech is going to play Miami very well. Their offense is decent. It's getting in the 20 points per game range, and I think Miami's going to be hit up in the chin in this one early.
Yeah, and I say one of the big college football teams goes down. I'm saying Cal is going to beat Oregon. Cal's defense is playing extremely well, and they played especially well against a very mobile Arizona State quarterback last week. That was their only loss, and I don't think Arizona State's a bad loss because they are now ranked after upsetting 3 ranked opponents in a row. So when Arizona State lost really does not bother me too much, and I think that Oregon hasn't really proven in the big games that they've been able to play well the past 2 years with Justin Herbert. I think Cal beats Oregon.
I think we're going to take a little look at the MLB Playoffs before we sign off for today. The Cardinals taking on the Braves. The Braves looked good all year. They got some pitching. The pitching improved along the year. The bullpen was hard to watch in the middle of the year. And the new signings before the trade deadline come over and they start pitching badly. And everybody's worried, but those guys have really stepped up lately. I think the Braves have a good chance at beating the Cardinals just due to their high offensive power, and I think they'll beat up on this Cardinals pitching. I'm taking the Braves in 4 games.
I'm going to agree with you there, Andrew. I'm going to go Braves in 4 games. You mentioned the bullpen consistently improving throughout the season. That becomes really important in the playoffs. And, yeah, I got Braves in 4.
I hate doing this so much. The Cardinals have been such a good team, and the last time the Braves played the Cardinals, the Braves did win that series, but they're a lot different team. During that time, they had a really bad month, and they've definitely improved to win the division. They have some great players, including Molina, Carpenter, and they had up and down performance on offense. I still have to take the Braves, though. I can't go against Markakis, Acuna, Freeman, but I'm going to say it takes all 5 games.
Wow, JP, going against your Cardinals,
This
man.
hurts. It hurts.
Traitor over there.
That hurts so bad. Never make me do that again.
We're going to make you do it again.
Next game, the Nats taking on...
I hope I'm wrong.
Next series, the Nats taking on the Dodgers. The Nationals coming off an interesting win in the wild card. I mean, it's heartbreaking.
Man. What a game.
Heartbreaking to see how the Brewers lost. I mean, right fielder just cost them the game by missing a ball. That was heartbreaking. I think the Nats will get absolutely destroyed by the Dodgers behind top pitchers Ryu and Buehler out of Vanderbilt. I think the Dodgers win in 3 games.
Yeah, going back to that wild card game. Wow, Juan Soto coming up clutch. Got the bases loaded, 2 outs. That was feasibly going to be the last time the Nationals were going to be able to make a push. He got the hit in the right field, and then they ended up winning.
Although I will say the Nationals do have good pitching behind Scherzer, Strasburg. Although they did use those guys in the wild card, I think that will affect them, and I think it will be good pitching matchups. But I don't think the Nationals have the offense to compete. I think they'll get shut out in 2 of the 3 games.
I forgot to mention I am taking the Dodgers over the Nats in this one. I will say in 4 games, Nationals are going to take 1 game from the Dodgers.
Yeah, the Nationals last week, I don't think that they're going to get what they got last week. The Milwaukee Brewers had 2 errors. The Dodgers are not going to just give them runs like that. I think the Dodgers win in 4.
As we take a look at the Rays and the Astros, maybe the best pitching lineup. I mean, the Dodgers obviously have a good one, and the Nats have a good one. But if you look at offense and pitching, I think it's the Astros and the Dodgers definitely have both. The Astros with Garrett Cole, Verlander, and Greinke, I think that's all they need. I think they win in 3 behind 3 great pitching performances by 3 of the top pitchers in the league.
Yeah, I agree. I got the Astros taking this one in 3. However, I will give credit to the Rays. What a turnaround from last season. They're actually making the playoffs this season. Played one of the worst teams in the league last season. What a turnaround for them, but I think they're not going to win a game in the playoffs.
Yeah, the Rays had a great game last week, winning 5-1. But I think this Astros team is too experienced and too good to lose to this Rays team. I think the Astros in 3.
As we move on to the final ALDS matchup between the Twins and the Yankees, the Twins set the home run record for this season. Absolutely crushed the ball. The Yankees with a lot of home runs as well this year. I think it'll be too many home runs to count in this series.
That's typical Yankees, though. They have a lot of power hitters.
It'll be a lot of offense and not a lot of pitching. I think, though, the Yankees will win in a very tightly competitive ALDS matchup. I think Stanton, Judge, and that high-flying offense will take it in 5 games.
I am going to take the Twins in 5 in this one. The Twins are hot this season and playing extremely well. We mentioned their offense with Rosario. They're just great on offense, even though the Yankees do play great and they have Stanton and Judge as home run hitters. I am going to take the Twins in this one, though.
Yeah, I like the hot teams when it comes to baseballs going into these series. I think the Twins win in 5. I just want to mention 2 quick things. One, Frank Gore hit 15,000 career rushing yards. He's now number 4 all-time, only behind Emmitt Smith, Walter Payton, and Barry Sanders, and he's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. He continues to just have incredible seasons, and he's one of the best running backs the NFL has ever seen. Last is Vontaze Burfict, handed a season-long suspension by the league.
Man. Just continues.
He has over $5 million in fines in his 6-year career and 14 suspensions for various infractions. Some of the ones that stood out to me, he tried to twist and break Greg Olsen and Cam Newton's ankle. Obviously, the big hit on Antonio Brown in the playoff game that cost him $500,000. Then he got suspended for PEDs, almost $2 million in fines. And another hit on Antonio Brown and James Conner, $112,000, and a lot more. I can't even read off all these, but his latest one hit on Colts tight end Jack Doyle, giving up the rest of his $1,200,000 salary for the season.
Yeah, that man's crazy. You saw him come off the field. He was waving his hands.
He's happy. He's laughing. He's smiling. How
is he still in the league? After all those suspensions in 6 years, the guy obviously doesn't learn. So how is he still in the league after that?
The fact that he doesn't learn is why he got a year-long suspension. I think the hit itself, if that's just like a normal player, if that's, say, somebody on the Falcons, Deion Jones maybe, if he makes that hit, I think he gets maybe 4 games. But the fact that he has so many suspensions already and he hasn't learned from it, the league had to do something about it, and I think a year-long suspension is appropriate.
Yeah, reputation is a big thing in this decision to suspend him for the entire year. and I think it's deserved, and I think that these franchises need to stop enabling him. He's been on the Bengals and Raiders, and there's really been no leadership in those. They are not telling him to stop. They're letting him run off the field smiling, laughing. The franchises need to take ownership if they're going to do anything about this.
Well, that'll wrap it up for this week's edition of the MBC Sports Podcast, second episode of our second season. Thanks to Connell Scruggs and JP Eisenhauer for joining me. I'm Andrew Selover. Have a great weekend, everybody.